So I just finished reading A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, and this book was really incredible, but it stressed me out and left me sort of angry and shaken. There was a lot of stuff that I expected going into it, because it's basically it's the history of the United States from the point of view of sort of marginalized communities, minorities, and people whose voices aren't really prioritized that often. And I was expecting, the atrocities against the indigenous peoples, and I was expecting the horrors of Jim Crow, but it was so much worse. There was so much more stuff that just no one had ever talked about before. The workers' revolts in the years between the two depressions in the 1890s and the 1930s, all of that, and just how bad that got. Like thousands of strikes and protests and people being jailed and executed. Like, it was monstrous. And just all of the stuff that the government did in like the 70s and 80s and 90s, things that they straight up lied to the people about, military action that, was technically illegal, but everyone got away with it, and just everything. It was a pretty harrowing read. It was a long book. I'm glad I read it, but my goodness, this book was devastating. And one thing I will say, I do appreciate how the author is aware of sort of his own shortcomings in terms of what eras and what minority voices he's more familiar with. He does touch on, for example, like the gay rights movement, but he does admit that it's something that he didn't give as much of a focus as he should have, and I appreciated that. And so he's very aware of sort of his own shortcomings and sort of what he chose to prioritize in the book, and so he's not claiming to be presenting any kind of complete history that touches on everything, but it touches on enough. And the overall kind of conclusion that I can come out of this is that people are stronger when they band together, when they work collectively and stand up for themselves, and that's when things start to get better.